How's it going, guys? This week's tackle video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about my Topwater box. Now, if you haven't already checked out all the other videos that we have been going through for, oh man, it's easily been over a month, almost 2 months, talking about going through my different tackle boxes. Go ahead and check them out. They'll be popping up here around on the top of the screen on the iCards for you if you haven't already seen them or you want to watch them again. But this week, this will be the last week of going through my tackle boxes here. If you can't tell already, we're out in the boat today doing pre-fishing for a tournament. And taking some time out here, we're going to do the tackle video out here on the water. I'm going to talk about my Topwater box. Like I said at the end of last week's video, I don't throw a whole wide variety of baits, so we're going to dive right into them. First, I want to talk to you about some of my popping baits, I guess you could call them. I don't use much for like a pop R or the mini poppers or stuff like that. Let's see if I can get this one out of here. Anyway, I just use a lot of times classic hula popper. My favorite color is this yellow one. The back hook's even worn out of this one. But a hula popper it's a classic topwater bait. I used to fish this thing off the shore when we on camping trips. I mean, have caught a lot of fish on it, and it's a confidence bait when I want to make a lot of noise. But I'm not going to be throwing this around weeds because of the treble hooks here. Let's see if I can't get this other one out. It's attached to another bait I'll talk to you about, but this one's kind of just a frog style, and instead of having, it's a newer one actually, instead of having the hook back in the skirt, the back hook is right there behind the front hook. Kind of sticking with the theme of around baits not around weeds kind of thing. I also love throwing, I mean, another classic is a Hedon or Hedon baby torpedo. Now, if you can get these blades tuned right, sometimes different ones, just like with a crankbait, some run better than others for crankbait wise, and sometimes with these baits, a lot of the times these back blades or props run better differently than it's not like you can take one out of the package and they're all going to work perfect. Some will work better than others. That's what I'm trying to say here. I love the frog color, but another one that's still attached to this hula popper is when I'm going darker times, I like this, I don't know what they call it. I call it a skeleton because it's black with white on it there. But I like those ones too. I mean, those are very, very classics. Again, I'm not going to throw these around weeds. I'll throw them close to weeds. I'm not going to throw them in the weeds, obviously, because we got exposed hooks here. Now this bait has caught me a lot of big bass. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a bunch of teeth marks on it. And this is the original Hedon Zara Spook. And again, this is in that skeleton color. This has been my favorite topwater bait when we're talking prop bait here. I go real big, bulky, a lot of noise. I mean, this thing has caught a lot of big fish. And I mean, it's a big bait. I catch little fish on here too, but it's something I love to throw. And again, these blades are, you have to tune them sometimes when they get beat up in the packages, and not every bait is going to act the same. Now we're going to get into something I'm going to be throwing around matted vegetation, lily pads, stuff like that. This is something relatively new, which if you're a bass fisherman, it's not new to everybody else, but it's new to me, and that's a topwater frog. I got a yellow one, of course. Favorite color is yellow, so I had to get one of those. A brown one. Now I haven't used this one, that's why the skirts are so long. And then a white one, which is given to me by a friend. But again, as most of you probably know, I like to trim the skirts here. This is one I've used. I use this a lot in Texas when I was down there last and caught a lot of fish on that. And this brown one, I haven't trimmed the skirts on there yet, but you can see how long they are. You end up getting more bites, or I shouldn't say more bites, but you get better hookup ratios when you trim the skirts on these ones. I know frog fishing is real popular in bass fishing. It's something that I didn't grow up doing. I grew up doing another bait that I'm going to talk about here, but basically acts like a frog, and a lot of times I don't throw a frog. I got a couple here just so I can use them when I need to, but most of the time everybody else is throwing a frog, so I'll throw something different, and I'm going to talk about it here. My favorite bait to throw around matted vegetation, lily pads, bulrushes especially, whatever, is this right here. It's just a topwater mouse, plastic mouse. It's a snag-proof moss mouse is what it's called, and the only colors I throw are white and gray. And this thing is just awesome. I mean, there's no rattles in it, not much flair to it. A frog, you know how it darts back and forth. This thing really doesn't dart, and it's so subtle that I think I get so many strikes on this bait. And it's the moss mouse is the size. Otherwise, the size up from this is like the moss rat made by Snag Proof. But I've always used the moss mouse, and I've had family members, my dad especially, he'll throw a bigger one or a brown one or a black one. But the best two colors I've had, and I've started fishing these baits, oh man, when I started bass fishing when I was about 4 years old, I've always been throwing these. And a cool story about this is it really kind of cemented me in throwing a mouse. There was one time we were camping, and me and my dad were fishing offshore. He was using a shorter prop bait, kind of like a torpedo, and I had given up after, I don't know, I was a little kid, probably 4 or 5 years old, and I'd given up. I was tired, and we weren't catching much. And Dad had his bait about 5-6 feet away from shore, and a bass jumped out at it, and the bass actually missed it. But my dad set the hook, and his prop bait came flying out of the water. Well, I picked up my rod, and I pitched this mouse in there a couple times right where the fish had boiled, and I twitched it 2 or 3 times, and boom, it blew up, and I caught it. And at that time was my personal best. I think it was like a 4.5 pound largemouth, and man, I was ecstatic. We went and woke my mom up and showed everybody. That was the biggest fish I'd ever caught at that time. So back to my childhood, this is always something I've thrown. And I know, like I said, a lot of people throw these frogs, and they're real popular. It's kind of why the reason I like to throw the mouse most of the time, because everybody's throwing a frog, just to kind of be different. So sticking with the mouse, or rat style baits, a new bait that came out last year by Spro obviously fits in with my mouse style bait here, but just on a bigger size and more action, is the Spro BBZ Rat. Now, I fell in love with this. It's called a Morning Dawn color, and I think this is the medium size rat, and it's got a rattle in it. Ouch, hooks are sharp still. And what this thing does is it's basically a topwater bait and a wake bait. However you work it, with this lip on here, causes the bait, if you're going over trees or stuff like that, or snags, this bait kind of swims, and then it'll hit this, and then if you see there, it has 2 split rings on the front hook, which causes when this bait hits a tree, the hook will swing back, and then it'll go over the obstruction, so it doesn't really get snagged that much. A lot of times I'll cast this out, and you can just slowly reel it in, and what this bait does is it's jointed in the middle, and then this tail, which has segments in it, you can see there, it swims. It actually swims like what a mouse would or a rat would in the water. And then every time this thing clicks, there's that rattle in the back that makes that rattling noise. And most of the time I don't swim it in. I like to pause a lot of my topwater baits, and I'll just twitch it, swim it and twitch it a little bit. Mostly I'm twitching and pausing. And I've caught, last year was the first year I used this, and this bait is just a lot of fun. I haven't fished a tournament with it, but it's just a lot of especially for me, for fun fishing. And they even added the little feet at the bottom. Kind of a cool thing that I haven't done though with it either is they have holes here to where you can put 30-pound, I think it was monofilament, made for 30-pound monofilament, and you can give it your own whiskers if you wish to do that. So that's what's in my topwater box. If we were talking about topwater, and my ultimate 100% favorite topwater bait would have to be the mouse. But if we're talking baits that I can't find anymore, is the Devil's Horse. I think it's made by Smithwick. The Devil's Horse is my favorite topwater bait of all time. they make the Devil's Horse, they make the smaller one, but they don't make the bigger one anymore. And I can't remember the dimensions of it, but my dad had, when I was a kid, again, back when I started fishing with the mouse, my dad had a stash of them in his old tackle box. And of course, being attracted to yellow, since yellow is my favorite color, I grabbed the yellow and black one, and it had eyes at the bottom of the bait looking like a dead bait fish. And I can't tell you how many monster fish I caught on that. I had my PB the time before I broke it last fall, my personal best. I had a 6.5 pound largemouth on that, and that's the biggest bass I'd ever caught before going down to Texas. And that was caught here in North Dakota, and it was 22 inches long. It was pretty awesome. But that is the end of my topwater box. I think, oh, we got another bait that I tried, since we're going on new baits here, is the Strike King Poppin' Perch. Basically, it's just like a frog, except it's got a poppin' frog. I've caught a few fish on this. I just picked it up when I was in Texas. It just came out last year as well. So those are kind of the rat and the poppin' perch are kind of my two new baits on the market that I've just been trying out. So, ending this video talking about all those topwaters, cool little stories, and how, you know, I grew up fishing with those baits there. This will be the last tackle video per se for like what I'm throwing, or what's in my boxes, all my boxes that I have in the boat and stuff. But coming up this year, I'm going to be doing, when I fish tournaments, I want to see what you guys think about it. I'm going to be videotaping my practices, the tournament, and then after the tournament, kind of talk about how we did during practice and the tournament, and talk about the baits that we use to catch most of our fish. Kind of like what Scott Martin does on the Scott Martin Challenge. I thought it was really cool, and I really enjoy watching those videos, so I thought maybe you guys would like watching the videos as well. If you do, and you really want to see those videos, like this video, you know, like the videos when they come out. The next one, or the first practice video probably won't come out until next week. Get the time to edit and stuff like that. We're just finishing up day 3 of practice today. I filmed all 3 days of practice. We're going to film, my first tournament is next weekend, May 6th. And we're going to try and hit this tournament season hard. And I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you for your support. If you have any ideas on videos, leave in a comment below. I'll try and get the videos done the way you guys want them. But I'm very excited. 2 weeks here, and largemouth season opens in Minnesota. And I can't wait to be doing that. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and tune in later this week for a couple more videos. And thanks for watching Preston Outdoors.